Tobias took a knee as he pulled the boy away from his mother's body. An awkward silence fell as we wanted to hear what the honorary leader could possibly say. I didn't envy his position. I wouldn't have known how to talk to Wolfgang under the best of circumstances. I certainly couldn't process more than a superficial, sorry for your loss if I really had to. But Tobias wanted to be the one in charge, and that position came with certain burdens that Gunn simply could not help. Tobias did the best he could. Wolfgang, listen, I need you to be strong, okay? The kid seemed plenty strong to me. Just a callous, empty, okay. Followed by a long stare at his mother's body, with the words, I guess whoever killed the old woman got Mom too. Jerry was the next to speak up. I think it's high time we get the hell out of here. Tobias stood up and squared off against him. Get out of here? And go where? Anywhere, answered Lauren, stepping up to Jerry's side. Pick a direction and go. There's a murderer in this house. It's better than just sticking around and getting picked off one at a time. Nobody is going anywhere, Tobias said sternly. Jerry crossed his arms. It sounds an awful lot like you've got an ulterior motive to keep us in this place. Tobias was getting worked up now. If I was the killer, don't you think I'd have shot you all by now and been done with it? Of course not, Jerry responded. The thrill is in the hunt. I punched him in the shoulder. Alright, everybody shut up, okay? Who's ever behind this is hoping for this exact scenario. I don't know how they did it, but I don't care much anymore. The facts are these. We've all been lured into a trap. We're being watched and toyed with. Nowhere inside this house can be considered safe, and none of us can be trusted. The stupidest thing we can do is stay put. Wait a second, Tobias said. What do you mean by we're being watched? Jerry and I have reason to believe our room is bugged. Tobias shifted his eyes to the body. So then there could be cameras. There might be footage of whoever killed... A jolt of energy shot through me hard and fast. I lost my breath and nearly lost my balance along with it. For a moment, I thought I was having a heart attack, but the moment passed just as suddenly as it came. Dude, Jerry said, putting his hand on my shoulder. You alright? You look like you swallowed a stink bug. Claire! Lauren caught her sister before she fell over. What's wrong? She struggled to catch her breath, then looked at me and answered without even using her words. The killer knows we're figuring it out. He's panicked. He's changing plans. Somebody is about to die. It wasn't just a suspicion or an intuition. It was the feeling of terror you get a half a second before a car accident, when you see it coming but you can't stop it. The moment when time slows down, and some people see their lives flash right before their eyes. It hadn't happened yet, but we were way too late to stop it. It was as good as done. Fuck! I screamed. Claire finally spoke. She said exactly what I knew she was going to say. I'm so sorry. The feeling was already wearing off. The sense of inevitability dwindled for a second, replaced with the newfound urge to get the fuck out of there before what I saw came to pass. I chose my next words carefully. We need to leave. Tobias raised his voice. I said, we aren't going anywhere until... I've heard enough out of him. Tobias wasn't the only one here with a weapon. Before I'd even had time to think it through, I pulled the stun gun out of my pocket and hurled it as hard as I could. It struck him right between the eyes and dropped him onto his back. Yes! I screamed, before realizing why I should not have done that. Dang, dude, Jerry said. Nice shot. Tobias was already getting back up to his feet. He reached into his jacket, presumably going for the handgun, but then his face registered a look that I recognized all too well. The oh shit look. That's when I knew he didn't have his pistol anymore. He looked around for his weapon, but his eye settled on something else. Jerry! I screamed, pointing at the stun gun that landed by the stairs. Tobias leapt for it. Jerry let out a battle cry of spring as he dove headfirst across the hall. They collided and stumbled down the stairs together. Lauren stepped forward. I held out my arm to stop her. Wait, I said. For what? Until we see who gets the gun. They both took a hell of a beating on the way down. Their blood was on both of their faces, and it finally came to a rolling stop. Jerry kicked the stun gun across the floor. Tobias took the bait. Leaping to his feet, Jerry grabbed his ankles and pulled him out from under him. Lauren asked, shouldn't we? No, he's got this. I knew Jerry would get the weapon first, or Tobias would spend the only charge on the one guy I knew who already tasered himself multiple times for fun, on different occasions. They grappled clumsily across the floor until Jerry got the upper hand, snagged the weapon and fired it into the air with a triumphant, "Ha!" Tobias immediately punched him square in the nose. Jerry dropped the gun and grabbed his bleeding face and said, "Oh, fuck you, you sore loser." Lauren charged down the steps with Claire tailing her. I kept close. She hit the foot of the stairs. Lauren shouted, "That's enough!" Jerry pointed at Tobias. "He started it." Lauren ignored him. "This isn't helping. Put your dicks away and pay attention to what's happening before it's too late." Tobias wiped his bloody face on his sleeve. He looked around at the crowd that had gathered on the first floor, then up the steps. "Bridget?" His voice lost all authority, and now it was replaced by a simple, old-fashioned fear. "Honey, where are you?" I looked behind me. There was nobody at the top of the steps. A quick head count proved that we were suddenly missing 2 more people. Bridget and Wolfgang were both gone, disappeared into the ether, just like old Nathaniel, and, I just now noticed, Maggie. There was a bloody spot on the floor where she had died, but evidently somebody had moved the body. I looked toward the door. It was right there, just a few steps and we'd be free. And the unspeakable vision I saw at the top of the stairs just wouldn't be possible. Tobias was already on his way up the stairs, calling his wife's name. The others shifted gears accordingly, joining him in the search without even a second thought. Only I stayed behind, by myself, wishing there was something I could do to change all their minds. But Tobias wouldn't leave without his wife. Lauren wouldn't leave without the missing child. Claire wouldn't leave without her sister. And Jerry wouldn't leave until everyone else was safe. Nothing I could say would change that. That's why he was about to die. Click, clack. I looked to the bookcase where the strange noise had come from. It was moving, pivoting on a hinge, swinging outward, creaking open like a door. Another secret passageway. I braced myself for the closet monster or swarm of killer hornets or whatever other surprise attack this night had in store. But nothing happened right away. The bookcase stopped moving. When the passage was about a foot ajar, enough to see through if I even wanted to take a look. This new mystery was beckoning me over. Luckily, I've run out of intellectual curiosity several dead bodies ago. I could see the obvious trap for what it was. After a few seconds, it still hadn't moved. I guess the obvious trap decided to up the ante. "Hello?" screamed the voice of Bridget from the other side of the door. "Is anyone there? Please help me." I approached the bookcase and leaned against it. I pushed it close until I heard a latch snap into place. Bridget, or whatever was using her voice, continued to plead with me, but now it was muffled and barely audible. If I were lucky, no one else was going to hear it. I turned to see Lauren standing at the foot of the stairs, Claire right behind her. "Did I just see you closing a secret door?" I shook my head. "What? A secret door? No." Bridget let out a scream. The pipes on that woman were impressive, to say the least. Lauren began to approach me, taking slow steps with Claire following silently. "What was that?" she asked. "What was what?" Click-clack. The bookcase door swung open again, with enough force to hit me in the back and knock me to the ground as books flew over on the top shelf. They all landed around me. Bridget continued to scream, "Help me, please! Oh God, Tobias, anyone, someone!" "Oh," I said, feigning stupidity. "You mean that?" Lauren rushed over to the passage, but I pulled myself up and blocked her path. I held out with both my hands and said, "Wait!" She stopped long enough just to put her knife against my throat and say, "Give me one goddamn reason why I should." "Earlier, when we found Hope's body, I saw something. I don't know if you'd call it a vision, but..." I looked at Claire. "I know you saw it too." What was it?" Lauren asked. I couldn't bring myself to describe the details. The house was fucking with us. There was no scenario where we were all going to get out alive. It's like quicksand. The more you struggle, the deeper you sink. The only winning move is not to play. And you're the one who decides where we draw the line, who is and isn't worth saving. You want to be in charge of the triage? What if it was me or Claire in that room? What if it was your friend, Jerry? What if you ran to save yourself? Go for it. But don't you dare tell me who is and isn't worth saving. Bridget? It all became moot a second later anyway, when Tobias heard his wife's voice. He ran down the stairs, ran past us without even acknowledging our little standoff, and he went right into the secret room behind the bookshelf. Jerry slid right down the handrail behind him, jumped off at the last second, and waved at us as he followed Tobias like a farm dog chasing his owner's car into traffic. I rolled my eyes and followed. Lauren and Claire were behind us. The moment we were all together in the room, the door case slammed shut behind us. It was a library, a secret room bigger than the parlor. Every square inch of wall was covered in bookshelves and lit by clusters of crystal chandeliers. Under other circumstances, I'd have been losing my mind, in a good way. But despite the size of our new cage, I was woefully claustrophobic. It certainly didn't help that Bridget was chained up to a wooden chair in the center of the room, with a big square box in her lap and a bright LED display counting down the time from 56 minutes. It also didn't help that the blind man had suddenly reappeared and was standing in the room with us. Lauren tore books for the secret door, throwing them on the ground in an effort to find a way to reopen it from the side. She wouldn't find it. I knew she was feeling regret, but I kept my I told you so's to myself for now. Tobias was at Bridget's side, comforting her while simultaneously checking the chains that held her in place. Bridget's mascara was running down her face. She was saying a lot of things. Nothing terribly important. A lot of I love you and I don't want to die and variations in there. Claire collected the books that Lauren had tossed to the ground and was moving them into the stack into a corner. Jerry circled the room, taking it all in. I stood still, frozen, wondering if I could have tried harder to escape when we had the chance. When Nathaniel spoke, we all stopped what we were doing to listen. It would appear that our dear Bridget has fallen victim to one of Bedside Manor's many perils. A most dangerous trap indeed, but not to worry, there's still time to solve this puzzle and save her life. To do so, we must work together and search for clues. Lauren charged at him. Listen here, you mysterious old fuck. Let us go right now or I'm gonna cut you into confetti and throw a goddamn party. I'm sorry, he said a little too calmly. I don't understand that reference. Perhaps if you search the library, you will find what you are looking for. She lunged forward at him and screamed as she plunged the blade right into his stomach. He didn't react. I nearly pissed myself, but the old man acted like he hadn't even noticed. Lauren yanked the knife out, slinging blood across the carpeted floor. Nathaniel waited a moment, then said, If you need a hint to get yourself started, and if you find you've gotten stuck, I am authorized to give you up to 3 clues to get you back on track. But all members of the party must agree before... Lauren held the knife with both hands and slashed it across Nathaniel's face from ear to ear. Blood poured from the enormous gash. The flesh on his top lip dangled over his beard. His tongue moved up and down, visible from the tear in the cheek meat, and yet it didn't seem to faze him one bit. His words were slightly harder to understand, but I think he was explaining what we had to do to get another hint. Lauren backed away, a look of pure horror on her face. What the fuck is going on? She gasped. Well, my theory of sex cult just got shot right out the window, Jerry said, handing her a stack of oversized encyclopedias. That's when Bridget said something that caught my attention. Her voice changed. It was quieter now. This was meant for her husband and nobody else. Of course I had to listen. Tobias, my darling, I have to tell you something. I know about Lisa. Be quiet, dear. That's what this is all about, right? That's why we're here, isn't it? That's the only thing that makes sense. This all has to do with Bridget, not another word. I love you. I'm gonna get us out of here. I just need to find some tools. Jerry walked up to them. What are we looking at here? I'm a bit of a bomb guy myself. Tobias pushed him out of the way. Not now, you. No offense, but this is way out of your league. I just need to find a way to open up the faceplate. Jerry took off his belt. Here, you can use the belt prong to pry it open. Tobias reluctantly accepted the help, while Bridget looked on in fear. What is it? She asked. Jerry answered. It's an IED with a targeted C4 blast. Tobias opened up the device, and the two of them began speaking bomb jargon like they were talking shop. Well, there's a panel for a disarm code. Jerry pointed. Watch out, the mercury tilt switch. If we jostle it, the bomb will go off. I can disarm this. I just need to disconnect this arming switch and the power source. Are you mental, dude? What kind of bomb has a tilt switch and not an interrupter detector? You disconnect the wire, you set it all off. Too used to, so. Nathaniel continued to bleed and bubble unintelligibly. A hand grabbed my shoulder and pulled me away from the bomb experts. It was Lauren directing me to the corner where she and Claire were building a small fort out of books. We're making a bunker, she explained. I can't leave them, I said, pointing to the chair bomb trio. You can't help them either. Help us. She had a point, and I didn't have time to argue. If that bomb were down to a minute, I'd have to find a way to subdue Jerry and drag him off to the safety corner. But until then, at least I could do something productive. Nathaniel continued to drone on and bleed. Jerry and Tobias argued about explosive schematics. Bridget tried to remain calm, and the rest of us, we built a blast wall in the furthest corner out of the room, of the thickest books that we could find. The wall was about chest high when I heard Jerry scream, "No!" Tobias screamed back, "Fuck you! I know what I'm doing!" He shoved Jerry away and reached into the bomb casing, and... Lauren slammed an open hardcover book on my head and pulled me to the ground. The room turned solid white. The air around me was replaced by pure sound. Time wavered. I floated. Reality coalesced. Eons passed, and then I was brought violently back to the moment. Everything hurt. My insides revolted. Air, mercifully, returned. But breathing was a laborious task. I tasted copper. I couldn't see anything. The only sound was the ringing in my ears. And then, what was left of my survival instinct took over. I tried to move my fingers. Alright, so far so good. And my arms. Not so good. I yelled out Jerry's name and then realized it was muffled. Not just by the ringing, but there was something in front of my face. On top of me. All over me, holding me down. Ah, shit, I realized. I'm buried alive. I struggled to free myself, finding that the grave of books I'd fallen into wasn't all that deep. I pushed the debris off me and emerged into a dark room. The only light was coming from the myriad of fires and pouring through the secret passageway where the bookshelf had stood. It had been blown right off the hinges. Most of the room was gone, or at least hadn't landed yet. There was a small crater in the center of the room where Bridget's chair had been. Lauren and Claire were both up, coughing, covered in burns and blood. But they were alive. And then I saw the bodies. I almost didn't recognize them from what was left. But there was no doubt. Bridget, Tobias, and Jerry were completely destroyed. My vision had come true. We couldn't save them. They were all dead. Guys, thank you for listening. This is a very, very entertaining series from Gas Station Jack. Thank you for your time. Please like and share and do all that. Thank you to all the lovely patrons currently listed on screen right now. You guys make this all happen.